I love you.
I love you too.
Forever.
I knew something was wrong the moment she said my name. No one had told her. No one could have told her. And yet, from behind the reinforced obsidian glass of the most secure prison cell in the quadrant, the most feared being in the galaxy leaned forward, her glowing eyes locking onto mine, and whispered, "Armin." What? I almost dropped my rifle. The corridor felt colder after that, not the kind of cold you feel on your skin, the kind that crawls into your bones and stays there. I had been stationed on Karthix Prime for exactly 9 hours when they assigned me to her. Routine guard rotation, they said. Easy post, they said. They lied. Karthix Prime wasn't a planet people talked about openly. It was a classified detention world, hidden deep in a dying star system, where the worst beings in existence were locked away, creatures too dangerous to execute, too powerful to control, and too important to simply erase. And she was the worst of them all. Prisoner designation, Zyra 9, species, unknown, threat level, absolute. Rumors spread fast among soldiers. Some said she could tear through reinforced alloy with her bare hands. Others said she didn't need to touch you at all, that she could reach inside your mind and unravel you like thread. But the most terrifying rumor, she doesn't speak. At least she hadn't, until I showed up. My boots echoed as I paced the corridor outside her cell, trying to steady my breathing. The dim red emergency lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows against the metallic walls. I told myself it was just coincidence. Maybe she'd overheard my name during processing. Maybe. "Armin." I froze, that voice again, soft, controlled, almost gentle. I turned slowly toward the glass. She was standing now. I hadn't even seen her move. Her figure was tall, taller than any human, her posture impossibly elegant despite the heavy gravity restraints anchored to her limbs. Her skin shimmered faintly, like liquid metal under moonlight, and her eyes, God, her eyes, they glowed. Not like machinery, not like technology, like something alive, something ancient. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. My grip tightened on my weapon. Prisoners are not allowed to speak to guards. A faint smile touched her lips. "Then you shouldn't be speaking back." I swallowed. She took a step closer to the glass, and every instinct in my body screamed at me to step away. I didn't. "How do you know my name?" I asked. Silence. For a moment she just studied me, not like a predator sizing up prey, but like someone trying to remember something long forgotten. Then she whispered, "Because I remember you." My chest tightened. "That's impossible." Her smile faded. "Is it?" The alarm blared suddenly, sharp and deafening. I flinched, my training kicking in as I turned toward the control panel. A system check, nothing unusual, but when I looked back, she was right against the glass, closer than before. "Too close, listen carefully," she said, her voice barely audible over the alarm. "You need to leave this place." I frowned. "I'm not going anywhere." "You don't understand," she said, and for the first time there was something in her eyes I hadn't expected. "Fear, they're not keeping me here," she continued. "They're keeping something else out." A chill ran down my spine. Before I could respond, the alarm cut off. Silence returned, thick and suffocating. Footsteps echoed down the corridor behind me. "Everything all right, rookie?" Commander Verk's voice was sharp, suspicious. I stepped back from the glass, forcing my expression into something neutral. "Yes, sir, just a system check." "What?" Verk's gaze shifted to her. She had already moved back to the center of her cell, standing perfectly still, her face blank as if nothing had happened. "Don't engage with her," Verk said quietly as he stepped beside me. "She's not like the others." I noticed. He studied me for a moment longer than necessary. "Get some rest, you're on her shift again in 4 hours." My stomach sank. As I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling of her eyes on my back. Watching, waiting, remembering. I didn't sleep, how could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice again. Armin, not as a threat, not as a warning, but like she'd been saying it for years, like she'd been waiting to say it again. When my shift resumed, the corridor felt different, quieter, heavier, like the station itself was holding its breath. I approached her cell slowly, my pulse steady but tense. She was sitting this time, her back against the far wall, her eyes closed. For a moment I thought she was asleep, then she spoke. "You came back." I exhaled slowly. "I don't have a choice." Her eyes opened. "You always say that." "What?" Something in my chest twisted. "What does that mean?" I asked. She tilted her head slightly, studying me again. "Tell me," she said instead. "Do you trust them?" I hesitated. That wasn't a question guards were supposed to answer. "That's not your concern. Everything here is my concern." I stepped closer to the glass despite myself. "Then answer my question first." Her gaze softened slightly. "You won't believe me." "Try me." "What?" She stood slowly, the restraints humming faintly as they adjusted to her movement. "I know you," she said. "Not from here, not from this life." I almost laughed. You're saying we've met before. What? I'm saying, she stepped closer, her voice dropping, you've forgotten. My heart pounded harder now. Forgotten what? Her hand rose, stopping just short of the glass. A promise. What? Something flickered in my mind, too fast to catch, like a dream slipping away the moment you wake. No, I said firmly, you're trying to manipulate me. She didn't argue. She just looked at me with something that felt dangerously close to sadness. I don't have to manipulate you, she said softly, not anymore. Before I could respond, the lights flickered, then everything went dark, not dim, not fading. Gone, the entire station plunged into absolute black. For a single heartbeat, there was nothing. Then, screams, gunfire echoed from somewhere deep in the facility. The ground trembled beneath my feet as something massive impacted the lower levels. Emergency lights flickered back on, casting everything in blood-red shadows. My comm crackled to life. All units, containment breach, repeat, containment breach on level. Static, another impact, closer this time. I turned toward her cell. The glass was cracking. My blood ran cold. That's not possible, I whispered. The reinforced barrier was designed to withstand orbital bombardment. And yet thin fractures spread across its surface like spiderwebs. She didn't move, she just watched me. It's here, she said quietly. What is? Her eyes met mine, the reason they were afraid of me. What? Another explosion rocked the station. The cracks deepened. I raised my weapon instinctively, though I knew it wouldn't matter. What do we do? I asked. The question slipped out before I could stop it. A prisoner, an enemy. And yet, in that moment, she was the only one who seemed to understand what was happening. She stepped closer to the glass again, opened the cell. My heart skipped. Are you insane? What? If you don't, she said, her voice steady, you're all going to die. Another scream echoed through the corridor, closer now. Something was coming. I looked at the control panel beside me, then back at her. Every instinct told me this was wrong. Every protocol screamed against it, but something deeper, something I didn't understand, told me she was telling the truth. Why should I trust you? I asked. She held my gaze. Because you already did once. The glass shattered. Not from her side, from something slamming into it from the outside corridor. I barely had time to react before a massive, shadowed figure crashed through the adjacent wall, its form shifting, unstable, like it didn't belong in this reality. It turned toward me, and I knew with absolute certainty. We were not meant to fight this, we were meant to run. My hand slammed against the control panel, the locks disengaged, the cell door slid open with a sharp hiss. For a moment nothing happened, then she stepped out. The restraints around her limbs deactivated one by one, falling to the ground with heavy metallic thuds. The creature lunged. I raised my weapon, but she moved faster, much faster. She stepped in front of me, and everything changed. The air itself seemed to bend around her as she raised her hand. The creature froze mid-motion, not stopped, held, like reality itself had decided it wasn't allowed to move anymore. My breath caught in my throat. What are you? I whispered. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes glowed brighter now, almost blinding, then softly. I'm the one they were hiding. What? The creature screamed, a sound that didn't belong in any world I knew, and then it was gone. Not destroyed, not killed, erased. Silence fell again, heavy, unreal. I stared at her, my mind struggling to process what I had just seen. You're not a prisoner, I said slowly. She turned to me. No, she said, a pause, then. I'm their queen. Everything inside me shifted. Every rule, every assumption, every belief I had about this place. They weren't containing you, I said, the realization hitting me like a shockwave. They were protecting us. She shook her head gently. They were protecting themselves. Another tremor shook the station. More of those things were coming. I could feel it. So what happens now? I asked. She stepped closer to me, close enough that I could see the faint patterns moving beneath her skin like galaxies trapped beneath the surface. Now, she said, her voice softer than before, you remember. What? Before I could react, her hand touched my forehead, and everything shattered, not the station, not the world, me. Memories flooded in, memories that weren't supposed to exist. A different sky, a different war. Her standing beside me, not as a prisoner, but as something far greater. A queen, no. An empress, and me, not a guard, not a soldier, something else, something I had forgotten. You chose me, her voice echoed in my mind. I chose you back. What? I stumbled, my knees hitting the cold metal floor as the weight of it all crashed into me. This isn't real, I gasped. It is, she said softly, kneeling in front of me. They erased you from it. Why? What? Her expression darkened. Because you were the only human who could stand beside me. Another explosion tore through the station. Reality snapped back into place. Alarms screamed. The invasion was getting worse. She stood, offering her hand to me. Armin, she said, not as a stranger, not as a prisoner, but as something deeper. Come back to me. I looked at her hand, then into her eyes, and in that moment I didn't feel fear, I felt recognition. I took her hand. The moment our fingers touched, the chaos around us seemed to fade, not disappear, but become distant, like it couldn't reach us. "We don't have much time," she said. "They're tearing through the barriers." "What are they?" I asked, struggling to stay grounded as fragments of my lost memories kept flashing in and out. "Things that exist between realities," she replied. "They follow power, they follow me." "Then we need to get you out of here." "What?" She shook her head. "No, we need to end this." Another impact shook the corridor, closer than ever. The walls groaned, metal bending under pressure that shouldn't exist. I tightened my grip on her hand. "You can't fight all of them alone." "What?" A faint smile returned to her lips. "I won't be alone." Her gaze held mine, steady and unbreakable. "Not this time." Something inside me clicked into place. Not a memory, not fully, but a feeling. Like stepping back into a role I was always meant to play. "Tell me what to do," I said. She guided me toward the center of the corridor, where the ceiling had partially collapsed, exposing the swirling void beyond, a tear in reality itself. "That breach," she said, pointing upward, "it's their entry point." The air around it twisted unnaturally, shadows stretching and snapping as more of those creatures began forcing their way through. "Can we close it?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "But not the way they tried." "How?" She turned to me fully now, her expression serious. "By anchoring this reality to something stronger than them." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "What?" "It means," she stepped closer, her hand rising to rest against my chest, "I need you to remember completely." My breath caught. "If I do that, you won't be the same," she finished. Silence stretched between us, broken only by distant screams and the tearing sound of the breach widening. "And if I do?" I asked. "Everyone here dies," she said simply. I let out a slow breath, then nodded. "Do it." "What?" Her eyes softened for just a moment, then she pressed her hand flat against my chest. The world vanished. This time the memories didn't come in fragments, they came whole. I saw us standing on a battlefield of stars, her power bending space itself as I stood beside her, not as a soldier but as her equal. Her chosen, her anchor. I felt the bond between us, something deeper than anything human, something that tied our existences together across time, across realities. And I remembered the moment we lost, the moment they took me. The moment they erased me from her world to weaken her, and I remembered the promise I made. "I will find you again." The station slammed back into existence around me. I gasped, staggering as the full weight of it settled into my bones. She caught me before I could fall. "Welcome back," she whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her, not as a prisoner, not as a mystery, but as the woman I had once chosen above everything else. "We finished this," I said. She nodded. Together we turned toward the breach. The creatures poured